Hi YouTube, welcome Pagan Perspective. This is Megan, aka Spirit Street, and today is Friday. Hi! So, this week we are talking about the urban witch. Basically, the question came in talking about how do you still maintain your connection with nature and what does it mean to kind of be pagan and a witch, or both. um, what does it mean to be pagan in the city when you can't really have access to, going on nature walks, going out in the woods, doing rituals outside, right? Because frankly, it can be a little hard. You can't just go to your neighborhood park in the middle of the night and hold a ritual. Some parks are actually dangerous to do that. You might not want to do that. So basically, what do we do? How do we make it work? So for me, this is what I can speak to is that I've always lived in more country type places. So I think the biggest city that I would say I ever lived in was right outside Palo Alto, California, and maybe Salem, Massachusetts. So those are probably the biggest cities that I actually lived in. And even then, in comparison to places like Boston or New York or LA, they're really not even what should classify, I guess, as a city. I mean, probably technically they're cities based on population, but yeah, they're not to the level of these urban cities that that we're talking about today. So take that with a grain of salt. I've always lived in, smaller density places that I can have access to land. And I grew up in the country. I mean, when I say I grew up in the country, I mean dirt road. Nearest neighbor like a mile down the road kind of grew up, right? So very country. And so having nature wasn't a problem. The state forest was our backyard, and we had a bear that lived there. So, it wasn't that difficult to get out in nature. However, I will say that, living in these places, I've definitely, since then, I've definitely felt this different sort of energy, this different sort of vibe. I get a lot of energy from the city too. I think that whenever I've gone and visited New York or Boston, I get a lot of energy from it. Now, I would never want to live there. That's just me. There are some people though who can really thrive on that energy. And so that's another type of energy where, you could go out into the woods and you can ground yourself and you can certainly get energy from that, right? We're in nature, we're touching the trees, we're touching the earth. All of those things can bring us so much energy and ground us. You can also be grounded though with the energy of a city. It has its own vibe, it has its own pulse and its own heartbeat. And that's something that I think the more that you work with, the better you're gonna get at kind of communing with the nature of the city, right? And the city is going to be chaotic at times, and sometimes magic and energy is chaotic. And if you can harness that, you can pretty much harness anything. So I think that you could really work within it. The other thing is that I have also lived in a lot of very small apartments. So that I can speak to is having limited space. And for the most part, other than when I was growing up, I haven't had a lot of space to be able to do outside ritual and things like that. So for the most part, I have had to do a lot inside, and I've had to do a lot with limited space. I mean, most of the time, if I have an altar set up for a ritual, it's a temporary one. It's one that I had to put up for the ritual, because where I regularly would have an altar would be like a small shelf space, right? And so I wouldn't have enough room to have it in the center of the room and walk around it. I'm not lucky enough to be able to have a separate room just for ritual work. That would be amazing, but it's just not in the cards right now, especially not where I live right now, where space is a major premium on an island. So that's something just to think about, is that it's okay to have a space that you kind of take up and put down, It's okay to have a traveling space as well. If you don't even have enough room for a permanent altar, even if it's just small, a little bit of a shelf or a countertop, even if you don't have room for that, you can have a portable altar, right? Something that you can bring out for ritual for when you need it. You can also get by with a lot less stuff. And that's something else that I think I want to bring to the table is part of being pagan in the modern world and being pagan in an urban environment where you probably don't have as much space is recognizing that you can also do ritual and spell work. You can do all of these things, celebrating the holidays. You can do all of them with a lot less stuff. So you can make do with things around the house, right? Especially things like wands, right? Something very simple, wooden spoon, especially one that you use for cooking. And the reason why I say that is because you're already doing magic every time you cook. You're putting all your intention into it, right? You're trying to, if you're making a soup to make yourself feel better, you're putting that healing energy into it, right? If you want something to really taste good to impress somebody, you're putting a little bit of attraction magic in there, right? So it's all something that you already are using and already putting energy into. And now you're just going to be repurposing it, right, for directing energy, right, for another type of energy work, right? So there's so many things that you can use from that. A special wine glass that you might use could be perfect for a chalice. Now, all of these things I encourage you to, cleanse, obviously, before you use them, but they already have your energy. And so there's already a pureness to them. And it's your home environment. It's something that you're already kind of feeling and you're already bringing to your work. And it's just going to make it ever so much special. So those are some ideas. The other thing that I find is that I also find ways to connect in my home with nature. So having different kinds of plants around, also just having a lot of natural fabric. I find that having a cozy blanket really means a lot. Having a lot of amazing pillows and trying to make yourself feel comfortable in your home is really important. And also having a lot of personal objects, right? So we know that personal objects contain energy, right? And so if you have personal objects that bring you joy, something special, that in and of itself can ground you, right? And connect you, right? In a way that you could also have by going outside. You just might not be able to have it in an urban environment. So you can turn your home into your oasis, having a lot of natural elements. If you feel particularly connected with wood, with earth, having a lot of wooden things around you, right, can really help. I feel very connected with water. And so many of the things that I choose around my home are things that are more teals and blues and water features, right? A lot of those sort of things. And so it's just something that if you feel very connected to something, you can bring those elements into your home and surround yourself with them. And you could still be in the middle of a concrete jungle, right? And still have that environment. So those are just some ideas. There have been so many other amazing ideas, and I'm sure you guys could come up with a ton. So by no means, I'm sure I'm forgetting tons of things, and I'm sure there's so many ideas that you have as well. It's just a way to kind of connect and a way to feel grounded in your space. I really believe in making your home a sacred space, right? A place that you want to retreat to, a place that you want to spend your time in, because like it or not, we spend the majority of our time in our home. And so, we can't always do everything. We can't always, change our wall color if we're in an apartment, right? Or we can't change the layout or something like that. But the things that we can do, that we need to try and harness if we can, if we have the ability to. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I remember I used to make a lot of the things for my home. So that's something to keep in mind too, is that, if you can't afford it, you can try to make things. One thing that I used to do, a lot of the local thrift stores, like the Goodwill and things, they would, if you donated a few hours of your time to helping them, then you are allowed to pick a number of items, right, for free. And so when I didn't have a lot of money, that was a way for me to get things. And that was kind of the best way to get things for the home too. Not just because they had home things there, but I would use the fabric, a big dress or sweater, right? Having beautiful cable knit sweaters, they make beautiful pillows, beautiful throw pillows. So just something to keep in mind, and just different ways that you could decorate up your home and make it feel like your sacred space, right? You want it to be that retreat for you. So yeah, so that is it, guys, for today. Thank you so much for watching, and give your ideas for what you could do to turn your urban jungle, or even just your home, even if it is in the country, turn it into your sacred space. Turn it into a place where you still feel connected to the elements, and you still feel connected to the earth and spirit and the god and the goddess. All right, so I'd love to hear your suggestions. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. All right, as always, guys, blessed be and aloha.